Here. Okay. Here's yours. Oh, why, thank you. Here's yours.
You don't need to travel to a faraway castle for a truly inspiring story. You just have to stop by Chattanooga's Ronald McDonald House on any given day. On this day, I had the pleasure of meeting Greer Cofield and her older sister Sawyer. They invited me to an afternoon tea party as their guest of honor.
I've always said she's my tomboy, and Sawyer's my girly girl, because she likes the dirt and she likes her blue jeans and t-shirts. Greer does.
For parents Shannon and Gregg Cofield, this fairy tale ending started as a nightmare. Last October, Greer nearly lost her life on the family's sprawling Cartersville, Georgia farm. Then, at 5 years old, Greer was already an experienced equestrian.
She has probably been about in 112.
But nothing could prepare her or her mom for the wild horse that would suddenly charge them and land a crushing blow to Greer's head. Greer and Shannon were hurt and alone.
I can't leave her out here. So I just screamed, because we were on about 20 acres and I was literally on one end, and Sawyer, our oldest daughter, was taking lessons in the arena on the other end of the property where everybody else was.
That terrible moment would change the Cofields' lives forever, and the hours leading up to the accident would play out like a novel.
I think it was the day before, there was a spigot that used to be right there at the gate entrance to the pasture we were in, and somebody ran over it. Well, it wasn't till a few days after Greer's accident that it was brought to our attention. Had that person not run over that spigot that had been there for 12 years, the ambulance would have never been able to back into the pasture.
The spigot was gone, but now there was another, more ominous obstacle, a cloudy, dark sky.
It was interesting. I'll never forget either the sheriff's deputy coming out to the pasture as the first responders were treating Greer. He came out and said, "Prep her for ground." And the first responder looked up and said, "You've got to be kidding me." And he said, "Nobody's flying, it's too overcast."
So I got the phone call from 911. They pretty much told me that it was bad, that Greer had been kicked in the face, but I couldn't go anywhere. They didn't know if she was going to be transported by ambulance or by helicopter, and they didn't know if she was going to Atlanta or to Chattanooga, just to stand by. Standing by when your daughter's not doing very well is pretty tough.
Gregg made it to the neighbor's house, and they raced against time.
For me, that's kind of where my story started.
The clouds lifted just enough for Life Force to land in a nearby pasture. The medical chopper and its flight crew got Greer and took off to Children's Hospital at Erlanger. Greer's parents were passengers on the ground, making a difficult and heart-wrenching drive. Hours later, nurses urged Gregg and Shannon to get some rest at the Ronald McDonald House.
I honestly don't know what we would have done if we had been basically living out of one of the waiting areas for 10 days. To be able to come here, have a nice bed, a good meal.
Family coordinator Michelle Carter greeted the weary, worried parents.
It was as if her top priority was taking care of us so that we could in turn take care of our daughter. Because we were a wreck. I mean, we were literally a wreck.
Employees and volunteers would make sure distance didn't keep the Cofields from their daughter's hospital bedside.
You see a neat organization like this, and then you start asking questions, you know, how does all this take place? And you realize that the dinners are brought in by volunteers, you know, local churches, the folks that work the guest desk. Those are all folks that have been here and stayed here, and this place is important enough to them to come back and help other folks.
And with their help, a miracle happened.
10 days after her initial accident, she walked out of the hospital on her own will. And we walked over here to the Ronald McDonald House.
In January, Greer's neurosurgeon released her to do some of the things she loved before her accident, like time with friends at school, PE, and with head protection, riding horses again.
They let me ride, they don't even buck.
That day, we talked and laughed over teapots and tiny saucers.
Do they lick you on the face? Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes. Only one licks me on the face. Actually, two lick me on the face.
Greer's journey is more than a pretend tea party. This chapter in the Cofield story has a magnificent ending that most of us can only dream of or read about. And it's all thanks to those doctors and nurses and the Ronald McDonald House.